And we're live,
Go.
I think.
I don't know. I'm looking. Hold on. Hello.
Give it a minute,
Hello.
see if anybody shows up. But I have something interesting to watch today.
I'm excited.
Something a little different.
Okay, now there it is. There it is.
There it is.
There it be.
It's not coming up on my phone.
It wasn't for mine either. I had to back out of it and go in a couple times. Too bad.
I'll learn how to do all this stuff. I'm not very good at it.
Gotta learn how to live our lives.
It's just like bringing up everything else.
Click on that.
Yeah,
There you
yeah, that makes sense.
go.
Okay. We're going to start off this week a little different. We're going to watch a documentary on Herb Baumeister
Ooh,
because he intersects,
that was a good episode.
he intersects the
Ooh.
worlds that we podcast about. You know, he's a serial killer, but his story also had a lot of paranormal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
God, that was such a good episode. I thoroughly enjoyed
that was
when
a
we did
fun
that
one.
episode. It
It
really
was a fun
was.
one. It's yeah, it made me want to do more true crimey stuff, but
Yes.
unfortunately, there's just not a ton of crossover in that area.
To do true crime that coincides with paranormal is very hard to find.
Mm.
It's not hard to find paranormal stuff, locations, all the stuff that we do.
Well, you're mixing
And it's
genres.
not
That's
hard
why.
to find true crime things to talk about. But to combine the two, which is what we really wanted to try to do in the beginning, it was very difficult.
Well, yeah, because you're mixing two different, genres of things together,
Yeah.
so it makes it a little more difficult.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are lesser known ones that we're just not aware of.
Oh, for sure.
But I don't know. Maybe in the future I'll take a look and see if I can find some more. I would love to find one that like intersects with Jeffrey Dahmer or something or Ted Bundy.
So cool.
Um, just because it would be a well-known thing that a lot of people would, resonate with because we've all
Yeah.
seen all the documentaries and movies.
All the things.
I'm
And
just
if nobody ever has watched the Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix, highly suggest. So good. So good.
yeah,
What was it called?
uh it was Monster.
It was the one of the monster series. I think it was a first in the monster series because
Was
they
it? Yeah,
have
I think it was.
what else do they have now?
Well, I think
I
they're
don't
they're
remember.
doing the Ed Gein one. I know that. I don't know if
Yes.
it's done. I don't even know if it's out yet. I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
either.
But that's the one that has Charlie Hunnam,
Yeah.
Jax Teller
Jax Teller, right?
as Ed Gein,
Yep.
which I thought at first I'm like, bro, he's way too handsome for that. And then I saw the him dressed as him. I was like, it actually works.
Yeah, it really
It's
does work.
crazy. Either
And he is
he's not
very
as good
handsome.
looking as everybody thinks, or Ed Gein's better looking than everybody thinks. But one of the two is there, and I'm not sure which
I
one
don't
it
think
is.
it's the first one.
You're not sure if he's as good looking as everybody thinks.
It's not the first one.
So you think Ed Gein's hot? You heard it here first
No.
on For the Booze podcast. We found the first girl to be like, Ed Gein is hot. She said she
Dang.
wanted to have his babies. She loves him. You trying to get that French front porch kiss with Ed Gein? I got you.
No.
I knew you were into this, but I didn't know you were that into it.
Oh my God.
All right, I want to give it like a couple more minutes because we do have plans today.
We do.
I want to go up to the mountain.
Yeah. Everything's slowly opening here for the season
Yeah,
to be able to make it to the tops of places with no snow, no flood damage, no washout, no nothing. And I'm
yeah.
very
We're going
excited.
up to we're going up to Sundance.
Yeah.
Not the town. We're going up to Sundance.
Like
Like
actual Sundance ski resort where they
yeah,
hold
they hold
the film
part of
festivals. Yeah.
the festival.
Yeah.
It's like a multi week or day or something, but
It's
it
like a week.
happens in like multiple locations. But Sundance happens at Sundance Ski Resort,
Yes.
and that's where we're going.
Which is like
We've
20 minutes from our house.
It's free,
It
and
is
it's
free.
amazing and
Called the Alpine Loop, and
and
it is amazing.
beautiful nature. Well, I'm gonna fly my drone up there, so I'll make a video of what it looks
Yes.
like up there.
Finally get
It's
up there.
yeah. Well, I mean, we went up there in February.
Mm-hmm.
Was it February? March?
March. March. End of
March.
March.
But you could only get so far because there was still like 4 feet of snow up there.
Like so much snow.
Yeah.
They plow. a parking lot where you can stop and go off, but they have plowed it for so long. It's just a wall. Like, what do you think? Like 10, 12 feet of snow
What do you mean?
when
Like
you
high?
first pull into the
We
parking
get the
lot?
banks, yeah,
The
but that's
banks,
just from
yeah.
snowing,
I
or
know.
that's just from plowing. But the actual snow was probably it was probably 4 foot. It's probably about 4 foot of snow
It was a lot.
because I mean it comes up to the like I guess they're like aspeny type trees,
Yeah.
but it comes up from the base all the way to the bottom branches.
Hmm.
And the bottom branches don't start at the ground. It's not like the Florida cypress trees. They're
So
like
I'm not
Christmas trees.
very tall, but he's much taller than
I am
me.
not tall either, though.
But you're much taller
I'm
than
taller
me.
than you, but I'm not
And
tall.
he fell into like the snow.
Straight up to my nutsack.
Yep. Completely collapsed under him. And
Yeah,
he was sure the whole leg was just gone.
I had a hard time getting out.
It was fun.
It was
We had a
funny.
good time.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Silver, you
Um,
should come out and visit us.
there's a
Come
video.
see.
There is already a video of all that on YouTube, but I never released it publicly because it has all our family's kids and stuff in it. But
Hmm.
there is a video that already exists of the place we're talking about. We're all like sledding and
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's
it is
beautiful.
gorgeous.
And I want to go again. I want to go up and see all the birch trees and stuff
I know.
because I miss it.
It's so pretty. I want to go up there eventually and do that like dip off that scenic byway that
Yeah, the
splits off from
with
there.
the canyon with all the trees.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so pretty.
I
Oh,
more than that, I really want to get to the top of Nebo.
mm,
I don't
that's
like
not open yet.
this is the secondary choice.
Yes. It's not
Nebo
as high as our other choices in
I don't care
elevation.
about it being
So,
high. I just
no, but that's why it's not open yet. It's because this is lower
I
elevation.
feel like I feel like Alpine Loop or Sundance Ski Resort is more what you would think of like if you thought of Colorado.
Yes.
And when you go to Nebo and you go there, that to me looks more Utah like.
Very Wasatch Mountain Range. Yeah.
Wasatch.
Wasatch.
The Wasatch front. You said that like you're from here. It's very Wasatch.
It is.
What's the difference?
Doesn't look like
I
any
could
other
tell
mountain
by the look on
ranges.
your face you didn't want to be put on the spot.
Doesn't look like any other mountain ranges that I've seen at all. It looks totally different.
I really love you. Okay, let us know.
Yeah, for sure.
Make that happen. But we are going to we got to get into this. It's already 2 something. I don't have my glasses on. I can't tell. 2:10?
I'm looking at my phone.
2:10?
210.
Ooh, I called that shit. But let's jump into this. We are on YouTube, serial killer documentaries. This is from 3 years ago. It has almost 1 million views.
I am so excited for
And
this.
I already know this dude's gross.
He
I
is
pretty much I
disgusting.
pretty much already know this story, but they call him Herbert the pervert. I love it. There better be
So true.
references to him and the guy from Family Guy.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris, why don't you come over to my house? It's real hot outside. Go ahead and take your shirt off.
Mm, love Family Guy.
You want a popsicle, Chris?
Got popsicles in my freezer.
Probably could have skipped
During
all
the
this.
first several years of the 1990s, the citizens in and around Indianapolis, Indiana, might have
That can't
stumbled on
be
a very brief
Indianapolis. That's
article in the
too
local
nice.
I know, it's
newspapers
very pretty. I
about
don't
how
think that's
certain
there.
young men were disappearing from the streets of their town, never to be seen again. In each case, the episodes mirrored each other, only the names changed. But the articles grew no larger nor attracted much attention. All the prodigal sons
Don't
were
give it
gay
away.
I
or were
didn't.
I'm
suspected of
sure there's going to
leaning
be
in that
somebody here who
sexual
doesn't know
direction.
that much about her.
Being
I know.
gay, they were a coming and yet steadily outcast breed of citizens in a very conservative Bible Belt. Even the officials remained lethargic. The common belief was that the victims might simply have gone on to other, larger, more glitzy towns like San Francisco or New York, where
They didn't.
homosexuality was not considered wayward at all. The only victims here, thought the police, were the families these young men abandoned without a
Man, it's really
goodbye.
weird because I was a kid in the 80s and it seems strange to me even back then, but it was like homosexuality or lesbianism and stuff. It really people criminalize people for that.
Absolutely. It's so wrong.
But
So wrong.
it's so weird because like by the time I was like coming of age, I guess, and I was in high school, nobody cared.
Nobody cared. Nobody gave a crap. Literally.
Like I had a lot of like female friends, like I'm bisexual, and I had a lot of gay friends, and I had a lot of lesbian friends,
Yeah.
but nobody batted an eyelash at. But 6, 7 years before that, it was they were literally like criminalized. That's what I don't
Like
understand.
ostracized.
You
It's
don't have to
terrible.
agree with a lifestyle. Okay, there's certain things I don't agree with, but doesn't mean I don't accept them. I just don't. Maybe not agree with them is not the word I'm looking for. I don't understand
Hmm.
because I don't have those feelings, and that's fine. We can all coexist together. It's fine. But to criminalize them, it seems super weird.
It is terrible.
I was
I don't even have words for most of
I
it. I
was
can't.
told something when I was young that
Yep.
still resonates with me today, and it was I don't remember who said it to me, but they said everybody should have the equal right to be as miserable as the next married person. So I mean,
True statement.
who are we to say, dude, what you do at home, you pay your own bills, you buy your own shit. Who is anybody else to tell you what you can and can't do? And
Exactly.
it just seems odd that we're so focused on what other people do behind closed doors. I don't want people to know everything we do behind closed doors.
Absolutely
And
not.
we are a heterosexual,
So what does it matter for literally any other couple on the face of this
well, that's what
planet?
I'm saying. So it just seemed really weird to me that during the 80s and even like early
Early
90s, it
90s,
was
yeah.
like very criminalized and it's
It was awful. It
very
was
strange.
terrible times.
I mean, some things about the world are getting better, I guess.
Yeah.
But as the number of disappearances told up, a few members of the community began to realize that there might be something wrong in the Bible Belt. The first to suspect foul
Everything.
play was a private detective named Virgil
Bible
Vandegrift,
Belt
the
is
first, in
not
fact,
good.
to start putting 2 and 2 together to actually add up to 4. However, even if he and the believers he eventually recruited from among the law enforcement agencies in the 2 surrounding counties who took up the search for a killer were not prepared to find a monster. Their trail ended in the wooded backyard of a
There's
huge
Herb's
private
house.
estate where the skeletons of the reported
No,
missing persons
mine's
and
not even on
others were
vibrate.
discovered.
So that had to be
Then
you.
the media took notice. Then the camera trucks rolled in. Then the killings
email.
took headlines. However, who can condemn the media circus that followed? For perhaps it was not the blood and gore and spittle of the
Now, Silver, you're here. Do you know much about Herbert Baumeister? I don't think I'll ask you because I don't see anybody else here yet.
Oh, Herb.
Old Herbert the pervert.
I love that nickname.
A Herbert on the surface really would be like your very average, mundane, plain Midwestern guy.
Yeah. Goes to work every day,
Family
has a
man.
perfect family, like,
I wouldn't say he had the perfect family. He was just a very plain Jane,
but looking from the outside, he had a wife that took care of the
but
house
he
and
was
his
still,
kids
but
and
I don't say it like that because he was still considered by people that he knew as like kind of weird. Like not even
who isn't?
like before everybody knew about the lifeless helpers that he had and stuff like that. Like people already thought he was a little strange.
Right.
Um, but nobody would have ever he was kind of like that nerdy weird guy that nobody would have
Yeah.
ever expected would turn out to do the horrific things that he did. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I think they just found remnants of another body on that property, like recently, within the last year.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I think the count has actually gone up in the last year.
Shut up.
I mean, Herbert's a bad guy, but for people who don't know, like in the beginning, people viewed him as just a very normal guy.
Yep. Well, niece in law, you are about to find out about her Baumeister.
Yeah, he's a strange story, and I don't understand how he's not more infamous. I don't want to call him famous, but I don't understand
Right.
how he's not more infamous than he is.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, he is one more of like, I guess, well known, but I feel like he should be up there. His name should ring with like Bundy's and
Mm,
Manson. I hate calling Manson a serial killer. He's not a serial killer.
it's not at all.
He's he never killed anybody.
Right.
But whatever, that's a story for another time. But he should be up there, Chikatilo and I don't know, just the ones that everybody knows about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know Chikatilo?
I don't think
Oh
so.
the
man, we're gonna have
usual
to watch something about. He's
sensationalism
real
that
bad.
often
Oh,
follows a
okay.
murder. Here,
He
there
makes
was
old
more.
Herb seem like a Boy
The
Scout.
graveyard, being dug up by the
God.
shovelfuls,
Oh, that was my
was
finger.
unearthing more than bone. With each stab of a
They have to, like,
shovel into the
change these
dirt,
and angle 'em so they're
humankind
up.
itself was feeling the eerie pain of reality, that there exists in a dark corner of man a skeleton that may come out of the closet at
Should
any
make more
moment,
sense, wouldn't it?
shouting.
We're not bumping in
Hey,
everything.
Utah homeowners,
Mhm.
you can
Ooh.
replace your old AC unit
First ad.
at no
Yes.
cost. Millions in fun.
They got to make
The
their
killer,
I know.
a psycho, The demon,
Look at him. He
whatever you
just
want to
looks like a
call Herb Baumeister, was a man
Baumeister.
with a surface so normal that, when his deeper psyche was discovered, made those who knew him wince. He was a
Yep.
family man, an entrepreneur who supported local charities. He looked normal and talked normally until you really got to know him. He fit all the components of a serial killer, among them the ability to keep his crimes in control and silent under an everyday nonchalance. He was a business owner whose store many townspeople frequented. He definitely wasn't the type of guy you'd suspect of being a sexual psychopath.
Mm.
Herbert
Sadist,
Richard
sexual
Baumeister was
sadist.
born April 7, 1947, to Dr. Herbert and Elizabeth Baumeister in the Currier and Ives Butler, Tarkenton area of
Which
Indiana.
1947, I'm pretty sure was the year Grumpy was born.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. I'd have
Wow.
to go look, but I'm
Okay.
pretty sure. But yeah, on the surface, Herb was just
Normal dude.
a normal dude. But to call him he was a sexual sadist
Mm,
because
very much so.
he didn't just get off on the murder. Like there was, I don't even know if he got off on the murder. It was all the other things that led up to the murder that he did that seemed to be his motive. Because you have your two people. You have the people who get off on the lead up to it,
Yep.
and then you have the people who get off on the aftermath of
Aftermath.
it.
Yeah.
Right. So like Dahmer, he historically was, he hated killing people.
Yep.
He despised it. It made him sick, but it was, he needed to get that done
Aftermath.
because he needed the remnants of it.
Yeah.
Where people more like Herb, I would consider he was more into the process leading up to it, and then he had to deal with the dead body afterwards.
Yeah.
But you couldn't let people go with the things that he did. You'd be in jail immediately.
Absolutely.
But the fact that he preyed on the gay community during these years is honestly just like Jeffrey Dahmer, how he got away with so much for so long
Yeah.
because,
That community was kind of shunned.
well, yeah, and police didn't care.
Right.
To them, it was just gay people are weird and this is what they do, which is not the case. So that's what happened is police always seem to turn a blind eye.
Yeah.
A sister, Barbara, was born in 1948, and two brothers followed after, Brad in 1954 and Richard in
Be red.
1956. As the father's medical practice progressed, he was an anesthesiologist. The family eventually moved to affluent Washington
Anesthesiologist.
That was
Township.
an
Herbert's
anesthesiologist.
childhood seemed normal. However, by the time he reached his adolescence, it became apparent that something wasn't quite right. A close school pal
Oh.
named Bill Donovan recalled that Herb would fall into strange reveries, often
Calm down,
pondering
Bill.
repulsive things like what it would be like to taste human urine,
Yeah.
and doing
Mm.
strange things.
Refreshing.
One morning on the way to school, he picked up a dead crow that had been hit by a car and shoved it in his pocket. Then, while the teacher
He
wasn't
kind of looked
looking,
like a
he
strung
dropped it
out
on her desk.
Tom Brady.
Irresponsible and often combustive, Herb's behavior soon caught the attention of his father, who secreted his son off to mental
Tom Brady,
examinations.
he's living a rough
A
life right
lengthy
now. Huh?
series of tests eventually diagnosed the boy as schizophrenic, having a 2 or more sided personality base. However, there's no record of further treatment.
Record.
Because his high school, North
Freaking
Central,
AI.
Good old
focused on
AI
sports
voices.
activities, pedantic, bookish Herb could not become part of the in crowd. He tried to be one of the bunch, but he just didn't
Did
blend
you like
in.
that, Silver?
He withdrew to
Strung out
himself
Tom
and
Brady.
spent many hours alone.
I don't know. There's a delay.
As
It
for
might
his
be
interest in
refreshing.
dating, his friend Donovan answers, 0.
But didn't
I never saw him
we
date.
are so glad
In his
that you
college
could
years,
make it
he
with
remained,
us.
as ever,
Yes.
directionless.
Get to listen like
He
a little
dropped out in his
podcast on
freshman
your
year,
drive.
returned
Hey,
for a semester here
Speaking
and
of,
there
I
throughout the
put out a poll on Patreon.
He did.
Yeah,
He
and
never tells me anything.
I don't. I run this thing. I am the show
Doesn't tell me
I'm the
anything.
show producer,
Ugh,
and
I just show up.
because I do have episodes ready to go now,
Right.
and
He's been working so hard
I
too.
asked everybody, do you want us to do them live, and then we can record them while we're doing them, and we'll just put them out, or do you want to keep them separate? And we'll do it that way. They want us to do them live, so we're going to record our regular
Okay.
episodes live, and then we'll put them out. Uh, I don't know if I should wait till. I mean, if we're going to do them live, might as well put them out when we do them.
True. However, my thinking, posting it on like Spotify and stuff after, do we interact on chat while we do it? Because that doesn't seem very podcasty.
Well, no, probably not.
Right.
Probably not. I don't know. Maybe we'll do it and then we'll interact afterwards.
True. That's a
That way
great
we
idea.
can Q&A at the end if anybody has questions about what they want. But I just wanted to throw that out there in case anybody missed that. Well, anybody not on Patreon. Uh, because I wanted them to have the choice,
Right, right, right,
and they
right.
want us to do it live. So maybe that's what we'll do. We'll record it live, and we will do like Q&A about the information at the
After,
end
yeah.
because I don't know why I was going to say unfortunately. I have a lot of information locked in my head from doing these episodes,
He does. I do
and
not.
there is a lot of stuff that doesn't make it into the episode just because there's not a lot of relevance to like the story that's being told,
But you've read it
but
and
I've read
kind of
it.
retained it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our first one coming back is going to be a place called Rocky Point Amusement Park in Warwick, Rhode Island. And the only reason I did that is because I read somewhere that somebody thought it was haunted, and this was a place that I actually went to as a kid. This place has been shut down since 1995,
Wow.
but I went there as a child, and I just remember being super scared of the roller coaster there because it was
Mhm.
called the Corkscrew, and I don't know, it scared the shit out of me. Um, but it's going to be an interesting one. But I actually think the third one back in is going to be
Good one.
the one.
Ooh.
It's got everything. The second, or maybe it's the second one. I know that there's a hero puppy in it, so it's
I know you
amazing.
told me about that part. I was like, I will take a hero puppy and a paranormal story any day.
But we have some good stories coming up,
I'm
and I'm
excited.
excited because this little break from doing the show has been kind of nice because it's
Yes.
kind of reinvigorated me, I guess, on the stuff that I'm looking up, and like I'm getting excited about doing it again.
We've
So
really come to enjoy doing the lives also.
I love doing these lives.
I know,
I
me
wish
too.
this would take off. I could do this all the time.
Well,
I enjoy
if
this.
anybody's interested in knowing, our little guy had his surgery yesterday, which
Yeah, oh
is
yeah,
why we did
yeah.
not go live, and it went very, very well.
Yep. 4
Um,
hours after he woke up from anesthesia, he tried to balance himself on a ball
yeah, and then fell to the floor and laughed about
because
it.
he's a
So,
psycho.
you know, little bruiser. It
He's
was
crazy.
vastly different from his surgery 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
They did IV anesthesia, and this time they just did the mask, and I think that made all the
Yeah,
difference.
yeah, he
But the
did
other
really well.
surgery was more invasive than this one, so I don't know if there's a correlation between
Is it
when they
though?
use IV.
I don't know how that'll work,
Well, they
honestly.
removed glands from inside his
Oh, okay,
face.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
So,
I only
yeah.
thought about the tube part.
No.
But anyways, it all went really well. Thank you,
Yeah.
Silver.
Thank
And
you.
he's doing great. And hopefully this will be the last time we have to do any ear surgeries. This poor child.
Yes.
I
If this one
feel
doesn't
so
take,
bad.
he will have the more invasive one at towards the end of the year. So
God, I really
hopefully
don't
this
want to
one
do that.
takes. I know. He was a trooper though, man. He
Yeah.
made everybody laugh. Everybody loved him.
Yeah.
So he always does.
Passed on the ice cream.
And I
See,
know,
my kid
what a little weirdo.
passed on the ice cream.
But like we had surgery in Florida and they're just kind of like in and out. You're here, now you're gone,
You're a number.
whatever.
Yeah.
You're a number. It's what it felt like compared to like having that comparison to being going through a surgery
Yeah.
here in Utah. Everyone who worked on him, minus the doctor, but go
I
figure.
think it's because he had more surgeries going.
But they signed a like a get well card
Yeah, and
and
his
put it in
nurse was
his
super pretty.
yeah, Macy.
She was really
Yeah.
attractive. Man.
Everybody was so nice and it was such a vastly different experience and it was
Yeah, it was
wonderful.
nice. I
Yeah.
loved it so much more here than in Florida.
Yes,
It's just it's a complete opposite, experience.
very much so.
It's just wild. I never would have thought it would be that much different.
I know.
But anyways, forget all the happy times.
Let's
Let's
do
get into the dark times.
The next 4 years, but never graduated. Nevertheless,
Oh,
through
I'm
his
hitting
father's
everything.
persistence, his
calm
father was a
down.
This
respected
is
man
you
in town.
last week.
The
I know.
Indianapolis Star, the major newspaper, hired teenage Herb as a copyboy. Gary Donna, an advertising executive who worked for the paper, remembers that Herb was sensitive as to the way he was viewed and treated by the higher-ups. He obsessively wanted to be somebody. He dressed well and was eager, but again, did not fit in. One odd incident occurred when Herb offered to drive Donna and his friends to the Indiana University football game in hopes that he might become one of the gang. When the day came, he showed up in a hearse, probably acquired through connections with the hospital where his father
Sweet.
worked, and, with lights flashing, raced to the game, laughing all the way. People started pulling off the road, recalls Donna. He even wore a chauffeur's cap. He thought it was kind of funny. Donna, however, his friends and their dates, wondered what kind of oddball was at the steering wheel. And the weirdness continued.
For a limited time, get a crispy chicken
Oh,
sandwich for
Slim
$5.99.
Jim.
Can we
We're
get
not
some
messing
chicken?
around. Our kitchen runs
I
full
thought you
tilt.
wanted pizza, bro.
It wasn't long
Yeah,
after he
but if
started
it's frozen
working at
pizza
the
or
Bureau of
slim
Motor
chickens,
Vehicles,
I didn't
another
say it
job
was
his
gonna be
father is rumored to
frozen.
have secured for him, that Herb began
Oh, I need pizza so bad.
What time are we gonna get back? Are we gonna be eating pizza at 8 at night? Because I gotta go to bed at 9.
I don't know. I don't know if this is the conversation we're supposed to have on here.
Sorry, guys.
Ranting and raving at fellow employees for no
Pizza.
apparent reason. His tenure over the years marked odd behavior, according to former coworkers and others. One Christmas, he raised eyebrows by sending coworkers a card with a photo of him and another guy dressed in drag.
No.
Despite his in-house personality conflicts and erratic deployment, the Bureau nonetheless noticed an apparent go-get-em attitude mixed with a high degree of intelligence. It wasn't long after that he earned the title of
I
program
wonder if
director,
Herb was born
where others
in a different time, if he would have turned out different.
Mm,
If he would have been born at a
yeah.
time where he didn't have to push down his real self
Mm,
and hide who he really was, would he have gone so far as to kill people? But he did have mental problems. That's the other
yeah.
side of it. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little more manageable with modern day medicine. I'm not saying like it fixes it or anything. It's always a struggle, but I just wonder if it would have turned out different.
Absolutely. Because you think like people who struggled with who they were has varied over the
Hey,
decades.
Ben.
And, people, especially in the 80s and the 90s, and people who struggled with who they were and their identities and things like that, people don't
Well, the
have to
80s,
do that so much anymore, like anywhere near what it used to be.
like I know you were both born in the 80s, but I remember a lot more of the 80s than you do.
Yes,
In the 80s wasn't
it's because
all
you're old.
it wasn't all about be yourself. It was all about this is what you're supposed to be.
Hmm.
So you weren't really given this option of acceptance if you liked things that were a little more fringe, like if you were gay or even if you liked heavy metal music
Yeah.
or you were a skateboarder kid or, bicycle kid or any of those things. And which sound not even remotely the same, and they're not. But in the 80s, it was just like you were all grouped together in this, like, you're the problem.
Mm,
And this isn't who you're supposed to be. And so, like, it was
that's not the norm.
yeah, it was coming off of the end of the baby boomer era of like little house, white picket fence, man,
Hmm.
woman, children,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yep.
And I don't know, I just feel like he would have had a different outcome had he been born in a different era, like if he
Absolutely.
was more our age.
Yeah.
And but the other side of that is he was into very masochistic things,
Hmm.
and like we're pretty normal. I'm not going to go into detail, but like we have our things, and every
Yeah.
every couple does.
Absolutely.
So I just wonder, would he have been different if he was born in a different time, or would he have still had these urges to take people's lives?
Mm.
I don't know.
It's a
It's
great question, but I think more like that chemical imbalance that goes along with the serial killer type people and the mentalities that they have. I think that's there no matter what. You know what I mean? But
I
if
don't know.
if he didn't have to struggle so hard to
But
hide who he
that
was, would that have exacerbated to where it ended for
that's
him?
the whole like thought experiment of like nature versus nurture.
Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
it is it hardwired in, or is it because of the environment in which he found himself?
Mm,
You know, you you're not really going to know. I mean, they do say that serial killers usually share certain traits as far as like the way their brain works, or even sometimes how what they can see.
mm.
Um, I don't remember them saying did Herb experience any head trauma? I didn't see anything about that.
I don't think so. I don't remember running into
Well,
any of that when we did our episode.
hmm,
So I don't know.
because that's usually a common factor. And they also do say that because most of the serial killers existed in this time frame,
Right.
they believe the lead paints and like lead just
Mm,
being everywhere
yeah,
had a lot to do with it.
agreed.
So
And I don't even remember if do we know if he had any of like the McDonald triad signs or anything like that? Or was it just
I don't know.
random? I don't know.
I don't know if there's a whole lot outside of just very basic things that were noted about his early childhood.
Mm,
Because I don't know, was he a bedwetter? Did he light fires and did he do all that
torture
stuff?
animals
Yeah.
and all the things.
I mean,
Yeah.
he obviously liked dead animals because
Yeah.
his friend said like, he like picked up a dead crow or something, which
Right.
shame on you. I love
I
crows.
know you do.
They're my favorite.
You
might
can keep
have at
them.
this point
I
taken the
love them.
challenge
Hi,
with an
Ben.
exerted professionalism. Herb's antics increased and flourished. Herb had displayed what
We
those
should
who
get
know him
see if we can get
characterized
Ashley
as a
to come on
bizarre
one of
sense of
these with
humor.
us and ask
While at
her
the
because
BMV,
she's very
it took the
knowledgeable
form
about
of
this stuff.
urinating on his boss's desk. It was no secret around the office who the culprit was. Still, Herb somehow managed to avoid being fired until he urinated on a letter addressed to the governor of Indiana. In November 1971, Herb had married Judy Sater in the United Methodist Church in Indianapolis. Judy was a college graduate who was introduced to him by a mutual friend. She was attracted to the tall, light-haired, boy-faced Baumeister, and in their initial chat, they discovered they shared many things in common. Both were young Republicans, and both yearned to have their own business one day. Julie quit her job as a high school journalism instructor in the
Yes, I
latter
do.
half of the 1970s to
I
concentrate
know a
on
lot
having
about
a
girls.
family. Besides, Herb was earning decent wages at the BMV. 3 children followed, Marie in 1979, Eric in 1981, and Emily 3 years later. When Herb was asked to leave the BMV, the ever-faithful Julie returned to teaching to supplement her husband's income through an assortment of odd jobs. He eventually wound up working for a thrift shop and, although he felt menial at first, soon realized the potential available in a place like that. He and Julie talked it over and, based on Herb's acquired knowledge of running such an outlet over the 3 years he worked there, decided to invest what money they had into their own store. They borrowed $4,000
Cilantro
from
over here.
Herb's now widowed mother and in 1988 opened Save-A-Lot Thrift in conjunction with the highly respected Children's
I don't
Bureau
know.
of
We have a
Indianapolis,
Savers.
a centenarian charity
Yeah, but
benefiting the
Save-A-Lot is also a grocery store
Yeah,
in
low price grocery store.
Ocala.
Yeah.
It was like it's it's more of like a low budget Aldi.
Yeah.
It's really the
Like the
bomb.
off-brand
I
stuff.
used
They
to shop
carry all
there, so
that
I'll
stuff.
talk all the trash I want about it. So,
Absolutely.
but it's like ghetto Aldi. It is. It's like a it's
It's
like
like the Dollar General of grocery stores.
yeah, but I mean, hey, if you need some stuff, Save a Lot comes in clutch.
Yes.
Did your son have two? Yes, our son did have tubes, but the surgery went okay. It's the aftermath because they didn't do it really that right,
Yeah.
honestly.
This was kind of a corrective surgery for the tubes and adenoids that surgery that he had in Florida. It's about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, so he was around the same age, between 2 and 6. He was 4.
He was 4 or 5.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
yeah,
Wait, when was he born?
2016.
Okay, he was 4. Because it was in 2020? Or was it
Ah,
2021?
geez,
I don't
I don't
remember. Oh
remember.
my God.
I worked all the time.
But
I was
yes, his
never around.
surgery went so much better. And we're hoping that the
He had a fat graft pulled from his ear and inserted into a hole in his eardrum, which sounds horrific when you explain it honestly.
yeah, I know.
But he had a
It's really
hole. He had a hole in his eardrum, and then because one of his tubes fell out
wicked early.
way too early,
Yeah.
and then the other one never came out and compacted into his ear with earwax, and he had like a
A
at one
full
point. At
blockage.
one point, it was like a 90% blockage of his ear. So
Yeah.
he's hard of hearing,
Yeah.
but now he can hear, and
Yeah.
it's weird
His
because his
TV
TV is
was
not on full blast anymore.
super low today.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even notice it, but Steven pointed it out and he was like, "You didn't even notice." His TV was set so low.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very strange. I thought he was sleeping
Yeah.
because I'm used to his TV being so loud. But yeah, everything went really good. He did a good job.
Yeah, he'll have a follow-up at the end of the month to make sure everything's going great.
Yep.
And if the plug doesn't work, that was a less invasive option, then at the end of the year, we'll have the more invasive, which is lifting of the eardrum and placing a medical graft underneath.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to do
Me
that.
either.
The
So hopefully
Arias
this works.
families.
Poor kid.
The shop, located on 46th Street, sold used clothing, household goods, and a number of second-hand items. The inventory technically belonged to the charity, which in turn received a contracted percentage of the proceeds. Shoppers found the Save-A-Lot tidy and offering only quality merchandise. It became a popular place to shop for families on a budget. In no time, Herb and Julie Baumeister received high praise from the Children's Bureau, whose humane cause greatly benefited from the couple's obvious management skills. The store earned $50,000 in its first year. Soon, they opened a second store. Successful business people now, in 1991, the Baumeisters moved from their middle-class home into the fashionable Westfield district, nearly 20 miles from Indianapolis in Hamilton County.
I love thrift stores.
This is Box Gigi, and
Here they bought, on contract, an
Wow.
elegant Tudor-style
Okay.
home
So
called
just real
Fox
quick,
Hollow Farm.
Save-A-Lot was founded in 1977, and this is the same kind of Save-A-Lot that was in Florida.
Okay.
Uh, was founded in 1977 by a man named Bill Moran as an alternative to larger supermarkets. Okay, it was started in Cahokia, Illinois. Now, what that tells me is that yes, this is the same kind of Save-A-Lot,
But this is a thrift store.
but the sign said food.
Did it?
Yeah, when we saw the storefront, it said food on it. That's why I looked.
Shut up. What is happening right now?
I don't know, but if that's not just a stock imagery because it says Save a Lot,
Right.
then it is indeed the same kind of Save a Lot.
So weird.
It'd be
Okay.
really strange.
Farms, complete with 4 bedrooms, an indoor swimming pool, and a riding stable.
Mm.
Its 18
A
and a half
swimming
acres provided the country tranquility in which
Swimming pool of
Julie always hoped to be
dreams
able to
pool.
raise her
Yeah.
children.
or
The
nightmares.
couple was living the American dream on the surface.
Look at
Herb
that
called the
steady growth.
shots,
Yeah, but
and
is this
Julie always went
actual
along for
footage
the
of the
ride.
house? Because we've seen pictures of the inside of the house, and I don't ever remember seeing that.
I don't either, but that looks amazing.
I mean, I guess if you're a book nerd,
I
Julie was
am.
forced to live in Herb's shadow. Whenever they disagreed about what should be done with respect to a particular matter, Herb would basically take over the conversation. He'd say, "Julie, that's not what we're going to do." Julie deferred to Herb, but she
does
wasn't
that
very
work?
happy about it. More than once, the couple split, albeit briefly.
Megan, that's
The house
not what we're gonna
itself
do.
seemed to
Yeah,
adopt
okay.
the
Fall in
tension
line.
within its walls. Neighbors and business associates who entered the Fox Hollow estate later recalled the rooms as being cluttered and unkempt. The Baumeisters, they said, lacked
Baumeister,
order,
brother.
or more
Baumeister.
appropriately, ignored it. The once groomed grounds of the manor house became overgrown. Julie would often take the children to visit Grandma Baumeister weeks on end at her condominium on Lake Wawasee. The couple would tell their
Wawasee?
friends that Herb didn't go along because of business pressures. Behind the bedroom door, there was little pacificity to their marital problems. Julie later admitted that she and Herb had engaged in sex only 6 times in the 25 years they were married, and
Sorry,
Julie
what?
never saw her
Do you see a problem with that?
Yeah.
I know, because like 6 times a week.
husband nude. Herb dressed in the bathroom,
That's
and when it came
terrible.
time to go to
Yeah,
bed,
and they have, well, 3 or 4 kids.
Yeah. So literally for funsies, only like 3
Oh,
times.
no, that's not for funsies. They were probably trying to make more kids.
I what?
Women historically put up with a lot. They put up a lot now, but they put up with even more back then
Absolutely.
because like I was saying earlier, the social norm at the time was you're married, man and woman, house, white picket fence.
Children, all the
They
things. Yeah.
achieved everything, which is why you hear all these stories about women back in the day who were like, I knew something was wrong, but
Couldn't
we
really say anything.
well, it's not
Couldn't
that they
like
couldn't say anything. They just didn't want to break up the image of we have the perfect little family life.
yeah,
And it ruined a lot of people,
absolutely.
honestly, because a lot of these women, I don't know, they just went through things that we'd never be able to, imagine.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
she's one of them, unfortunately. I couldn't imagine being with somebody who was like, in 26 years, you guys had sex 6 times. That's
That's
insane.
awful.
That is, and I would shrivel up and die.
he would always put on pajamas, slipping between the sheets. He was ashamed of his skinny body. That should have been a tip-off to Julie that something was wrong, but she was an over-trusting woman who, despite their problems, put complete stock in her husband's actions. Julie, probably in trying so hard to reconcile their differences, threw her mental state into a complete dependency on Herb. Deep inside, she chose not to see the signals, and that may have been the reason why she believed a preposterous alibi in 1994.
Monstrous.
Son
Hmm.
Eric had been playing in the family's wooded backyard when he found, half buried, a complete human skeleton. Showing the gruesome discovery to his mother, Julie anxiously awaited her husband's arrival that day home from the shop. When she showed him the curiosity, he explained that it had been one of his doctor father's dissecting skeletons. He had had it stored in the garage and buried it in the yard only after he decided to clean out the garage. Simple
Mm.
explanation, he said. Subject closed. Virgil Vandegrift has been in the law enforcement arena and has seen and heard enough drama in his life as a
Now,
marine
to anybody watching, before they get into the interesting bits of the story,
Mhm.
I do want to warn you, like, there's going to be stuff in this that's pretty horrible.
Yes.
I don't know how detailed they're going to get about it, but if you're sensitive about this kind of stuff, murder,
And the graphics that go along with that.
well, they're graphic murders that fall into like a sexual nature.
Mhm.
So if that's something that is not something you can handle, I just want to let you know now. You don't have to stay and watch it or anything. Like, we appreciate you for being here and your support, but I understand. I get
Mhm.
it, but I just wanted to let everybody know.
County Sheriff to immediately spot trouble lurking in the shadows around the corner. One of his more popular cases was the locating of missing persons. The way it works here in Indianapolis is that persons are not classified as
I
missing
heard
until
that.
they're gone 24 hours, he explains. The case then goes to a district detective, and if they don't find them in 30 days, it travels to the Missing Persons Bureau for them to investigate. Now, to the general public, this seems like a lot of red tape and highly absurd. Parents don't want to wait to find out what happened to their kid, and wives
Mhm.
don't want to wait to see what happened to their husband. When the mother of 28-year-old Alan Broussard approached him in early June of 1994 to tell him her son was missing, Vandegrift wasn't alarmed. Many cases, he
24
states,
hours.
usually turn out to be mere
So stupid.
It's
runaways with
not real.
little or no foul play
That's not a
involved.
real law.
He
Back
nevertheless
then,
began to
that's what they
investigate the
went off
case.
of.
No, it was not a law back then either.
I understand it's not a law, but that's what they went off of. We have to wait 24 hours.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're trying to allude to, but these police were supposed to search as soon as you asked them to.
Mhm.
That was never really a thing, although it's been perpetuated that it was always a thing. It's not. Uh, that 24 hours thing is nonsense.
This is absolutely
Because how would you
ridiculous.
call up and be like,
Absolutely
my
ridiculous.
14-year-old daughter or son is missing? They're like, oh, has it been 24 hours? It doesn't matter.
Does not matter
My
at all
my kid
whatsoever.
is gone.
Yeah.
Find them.
Yeah.
Alan Broussard, he learned, had his share
I'm
of
gonna run to the
troubles.
bathroom.
A heavy drinker,
I have to
he
go
was
pee.
also gay in a community that pretty much shunned that lifestyle. He was last seen, in fact, leaving a gay bar called Brothers. Virgil issued posters throughout Indianapolis and elsewhere that ran Allen's photo and asked for information from any citizen who might have seen him. If Vandegrift at first perceived no ill intent behind Allen's disappearance, his perception of what most likely did happen to the man changed quickly. Before the end of July, he became convinced that, as he puts it, Indianapolis had a serial killer on its hands.
Mm.
3 incidents occurred, tumbling on top of each other. First, Vandegrift learned that an Indianapolis police detective named Mary Wilson was working on the disappearance of other gay men throughout the area, all similar to the Broussard mystery. Even their physical appearances and ages paralleled. Second, he came across a small article in a magazine called Indiana Word about a man named Jeff Jones who had disappeared in mid-1993, a year earlier. This gay lifestyle publication, which Vandegrift's investigators picked up while scouting the gay bars for information on Broussard, reported that Jones, 31, had evaporated into thin air from the streets of Indianapolis. Vandegrift, in researching Jones, discovered that the prodigal shared a background of the social indifference and wayward habits as the others. But what convinced
So,
You're allowed to reach over and pause
at,
it.
but you're right there. So at this point, 3 people he's finding out now have gone missing, all around the same age, same sex, and generally around the same, sexuality of people. So you're still gonna say 24 hours,
Yeah.
and you're like starting to realize that, oh, there might be a serial killer in our
Yeah, but
area.
the police aren't generally quick to be like serial killer. They try to find every other option first.
I get it, but like you're now talking to another detective who also has these 2 missing people.
Well, because once you label it a serial killer, it creates like a panic.
It's a whole thing.
And
Yeah.
then, the news crew is going to get a hold of that.
Yep.
And they're going to start putting it out there. So I don't agree with the 24-hour wait time, but I do agree with the
Maybe hold off and wait.
maybe hold off on the serial killer label
Or you start investigating it as that, but not
quietly.
make it public.
Quietly.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, there's things they could do, but this whole 24-hour wait thing is really dumb.
it is. It's so
Doesn't
stupid.
doesn't make any
It's
sense.
ridiculous.
Vandegrift to regard these vanishings as more than circumstantial was the event of yet another disappearance. The latest took place in July. This time, Roger Allen Goodlett, 34 years old, left his mother's place where he lived to visit a gay bar on 16th Street.
Absolutely.
As with the other
Agreed.
2 men, roughly the same age and with the same casual approach to life, Roger was swallowed into oblivion. As with Mrs. Broussard, Goodlet's mother came to Vandegrift because she didn't want to wait for the legal period. She wept as she told Virgil about Roger,
This
his
dude's
childhood
picture is like
demeanor,
peering
his
into my
trusting
soul.
nature, his
I don't
Mhm.
tendency
like
to
it.
drink too much,
It's creeping
the
me
whole
out.
litany of factors that made Roger vulnerable alone out in the streets.
This is your sign to go get the 3-on-6. My name is Melissa.
Oh my God.
I grew
If
up
we
there.
ever
To
make it
Vandegrift,
anywhere on this,
listening to
we're
her
gonna we're
recite
gonna
felt
get
like a repeat of those sessions with
rid of
Alan
these ads.
Broussard's mother. The fates of these three men were too close to ignore, he noted. Vandegrift and his investigator, Bill Hillsley, scoured the gay bars in town, but didn't come up with much. Owners and frequenters of the establishments seemed too frightened to talk. They did learn, however, that Goodlet had left our place with another man, whose description remained vague, in a light blue car with an Ohio license plate. Unfortunately, Vandegrift found the police disinterested in the information he
I
supplied,
don't like it.
but the
Mhm.
private detective was not to be discouraged. Sometimes breakthroughs come from the strangest places and in the most unexpected fashions. And, as he surmised, one indeed presented itself in August, only weeks after he entered the case. He met a guy who had known Roger Goodlet from the gay bar scene. He had seen Vandegrift's posters and believed he had stumbled onto some information that might solve the puzzle over Roger's whereabouts. His story was incredible, but he swore it was true. He had been seen with a man whom he was sure was a serial killer. When he tried to tell the local police, they treated him like he was crazy. The FBI suggested he had been on a drug trip. Phoning Roger's mother, she put him in touch with Detective Vandegrift. The informant had seen and talked to the killer. In fact, in retrospect, he seems to have miraculously escaped with his life. Over the next several weeks, he made several visits to Vandegrift's office, each subsequent one yielding a little more information as he recalled it, or chose to tell it. Simply, he feared for his life. But as he came to know and trust Vandegrift and his secretary, Connie Pierce, he opened up more and more each time. His interviews were recorded with his permission. According to the informant, he had chanced upon his suspect in a local gay bar in town, the 501 Club. Actually, he had seen him before in Indianapolis's gay night scene, but couldn't place him. Tall, lanky, and silent, but they had never spoken. On this particular August evening, what had drawn his attention to the man was the extreme way he seemed to scrutinize the Roger Goodlet missing person poster that hung behind
I
the...
remember talking about this in our episode.
Mhm.
It was like they were always so close, but yet so they couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
And
And he was always like right there, but
yeah,
so far away.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like they just couldn't figure out who he was, and everybody, because the gay community was so looked down on
Right.
that they were just afraid to like say things or anything. Oh, there's
Mhm.
somebody out front. Who is this? Oh, you know what? Do you want to go handle that?
Is it
I think
the friend?
it's the friend.
Okay.
We'll hang out here for a second and
I'll
talk while
BRB.
Megan's gone. We've got a we've got a visitor.
Ow, ow, ow.
Or wait,
Is it?
it's groceries.
Oh, it's okay. It's the delivery.
Delivery of what? Oh, okay. It's not the friend. We have a lot of issues with our deliveries here, unfortunately. But yeah, we touched on a lot of this stuff. It was just like no matter how hard they tried, they just couldn't seem to figure it out. And it seemed when I was doing the research, it almost seemed like everybody knew who it was, um, but nobody was willing to like point him out, or nobody was really willing to help because then you'd have to come forward and you'd almost have to admit to the rest of the world that you were frequenting a gay bar, which would have come under a lot of scrutiny by the community. And then even if you did that, most of the people weren't going to believe you anyways because you were looked so down upon. And this was the problem. And this was the same problem that Jeffrey Dahmer, his victims had, was the same thing. Because I mean, even him, like one of his victims snuck out and got, he found the police and tried to get help, and they sent him back into the care of Jeffrey Dahmer. So this was a man, this was a hard time to, trying to live your life and be your own person. I couldn't imagine, like I lived through this time, but I was a child. So none of this really registered with me until I got older. But it's just such a wild story. But we'll watch a little bit of this while she's gone. We've already heard a lot of this. And you can probably hear her doing the groceries upstairs.
the bar counter. I just had a feeling by the way he was captivated by that poster that he was the man who killed my friend Roger, he told Vandegrift. Something in his eyes. His story unfolded. Suspecting this stranger of Roger's disappearance, he introduced himself to the man in hopes he would find out what he might know. The man, who called himself Brian Smart, invaded his subtle inquiries about Roger, but, smiling, invited him
Sure,
out
this
for
is
the
going to be
night.
good for the
He
audio.
explained he was a landscape
That's what
artist from
came.
Ohio,
More snacks
currently
and
living in an
pretzels.
empty house
Here, I'll
outside of
mute us
town
while we
that he
eat
was
our
preparing
fruities.
for the new owners yet to move in. Let's go back there for a cocktail and a swim, he asked him. He reluctantly agreed. And then a night of abstract weirdness began. Outside, they got into Brian's gray Buick with an Ohio license plate. They headed north on Meridian Street, where it turned into US I-31, the downtown expanses disappearing behind them as the greener suburbs emerged. The informant didn't often venture this far north of Indianapolis, but he knew they were heading into rich people territory. They finally drew off the highway, somewhere past 121st Street, made several more turns, then entered a quiet locale dotted with expensive new homes and horse farms, set off by split-rail fences. At an asphalt driveway marked by a sign atop a landscaped stone embankment, Brian slowed. Something farm was all he could make out on the sign.
We'd open our
The
fruit
Buick
snacks.
paused before what was a large Tudor country mansion, unlit. They alighted from the auto and entered the dark house through a side entrance, passing through the garage where the informant spotted several cars parked, among them an antique car. Entering the house, he thought it seemed haphazardly furnished. Even in the moonlit dimness, he could see that there were items of furniture and boxes everywhere. He followed Brian through a succession of rooms until they came to a descending staircase.
The deadliest warriors become the greatest.
Come on, Brian motioned down. There's electricity in the basement, and led him to a
This is where the story is going to get really weird.
Hmm.
This has got to be like the most notable thing that either one of us remember of her Baumeister,
Absolutely.
because it is honestly to this day probably still one of the weirdest things we've ever talked about.
It is so incredibly strange.
Like, try to put yourself into this.
Like, I couldn't even imagine being one of these people who Herb brought home and took out to the pool area and did the things that he did. It is just wild. It is so strange.
It's not even just the things he did, though. It's like the
The setup.
setup. The setup
Yeah,
is just so weird.
it is so weird.
Like, I know we're talking about a serial killer, but I don't know.
It's just let's go.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
let's
just
show
very
him.
strange.
Yeah.
large recreation room at the bottom of the steps. Like the upper quarters, this room with its wet bar and connecting indoor pool might have been pleasant were it not for an array of clutter. The sight of mannequins around the room,
Clutter.
staged in various poses, shot a chill through him. I get lonely
Mannequins.
down here.
Yes.
Brian noticed his
Mannequins.
interest in the grotesque
weird.
forms. They give me company. Refusing to take a drink as offered, Brian noticed his host's countenance darken. Nevertheless, Brian insisted that they party, but first excused himself briefly. Upon his return, he seemed looser, less timid, gabbier. He thought for certain that he must have done some drug in his absence. Cocaine, he speculated. He'd seen the same buoyancy in other people who were coked up. Brian
Rick
convinced him
James,
to go for a
bitch.
swim in what he discovered was a lap pool with equal depths at both ends. While the guests swam naked, Brian talked about a number of subjects. Eventually, however, his expression changed. I just learned this really neat trick, he whispered, gathering up the hose that lay serpentined on the edge of the pool. If you choke someone while you're having sex, it feels
Sometimes you
really
have to
great.
gather your hose.
You really get a great rush. You just want to pinch these two veins, he continued, indicating the carotid arteries in his own neck, and it's such a great buzz. You should see how someone looks when you're doing it to
Carotid?
them.
Hmm.
Their lips change color. That's how you can tell it's working. Listening to this, Brian, if that was his real name, carry on about his asphyxiating sexual delights, now convinced him that Brian had murdered Roger, and God knows who else. Do it to me, Brian said. He stripped and laid down on a fold-out couch in the corner of the room and directed him to slip the hose around his throat. As he did so, he masturbated. By then, the informant was so horrified,
Oh, they're getting very
so
detailed.
numb, he
Mhm.
felt compelled to do whatever Brian wanted. It was clear that Brian had been through this routine many times. The only way to find out how these particular sex games ended, the informant reasoned, was to take it all the way with this guy. He placed Brian's hands on his neck now and lay down, awaiting the next step with horror. Brian instinctively took the bait. Bending over his new playmate, Brian tied the choker tight around his throat, his face flushed with anticipation. As the garroting became intense, as the blood pressure mounted in his head, the informant didn't wait for further results. He feigned unconsciousness. Eyes closed, he felt Brian ease up. A slight pause. Brian whispered his name. Another pause before he started shaking him violently. When he opened his eyes and grinned, Brian raged. You scared the shit out of me.
Used to
You
be a
know you
one-time
can
thing.
die doing this.
You never
There
know.
have been accidents.
We have phone issues
With
like that,
that,
and we have
he
new
decided
phones.
to be frank. Is that what happened to Roger Goodlett? Was he one of your accidents? Were there others? If the informant hoped, however, to raise a confession, he was disappointed. Brian only stared at him, not comprehending, lost in a daze of whatever substance he had ingested. His only response was a fool's grin. Brian acted as if the whole thing were an amusing little game that he controlled completely. Eventually, Brian's speech slurred and he was overcome with sleep. This gave the guest a chance to scout the upper quarters of the house.
Didn't we read something along the lines of this dude regretted that he could have stopped all this if he would have killed him?
Yep. Yep.
Why is my microphone rattling so much?
I don't know.
All right, I'm going to play this. I'm going to mute so I can fix this thing.
Okay.
For he didn't believe Brian's story that he was only the landscaper here, nor that the estate's owners had not yet moved in. His doubts were confirmed, for in the dark house above, he encountered children's toys and women's clothing in all the rooms. The place was obviously
fix it.
lived in for some time. Now, if he could only find out Brian Smart's real
You hear
name.
it?
This one sounded phony, and he figured the police would love to have this dude's real identity. Creeping back downstairs, he began fingering through Brian's tossed-off trousers for a wallet. But when the other snorted and shook, as if awakening, he dropped the trousers. Unfortunately, before he had another opportunity to spy, Brian awoke. It took some convincing, but he finally made Brian drive him back to town. Dressing, searching for his car keys, he then led him back to the Buick, which he nosed back toward the direction of Indianapolis. Hey, you're a good sport, Brian congratulated his partner. You really know how to
Hey,
play.
thanks for
As the car
choking
rolled into
me
town, he made his
in.
guest promise to meet
Let
him
me
at the
choke you.
501 Club the following Wednesday. The informant wasn't very clear where Brian's house was actually located, but it seemed to be either Westfield or Carmel, both very exclusive suburbs in Hamilton County. By the directions given, Van de Griff knew the place was outside Marion County, in which Indianapolis sits. The trouble was that the vague description of the house as stated by the informant could fit almost any one of 100 estates in that area.
Is it yours?
All he had to go on was that a sign posted near the driveway read something about farms. But Van de Griff grew anxious as the appointed Wednesday neared for the informant's and Brian's rendezvous. He posted one of his men, Steve Rivers, outside the bar while the informant loitered inside. Because he had spotted several cars in the deviant's garage, Rivers' watchful eyes studied the faces of anyone in any automobile that seemed to cruise by. No one fit Brian's description. Brown-haired, long-faced.
What you want to do is save hundreds when Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance.
That's great, but can you ask your friend to...
Pale. By the time the bar closed that evening, it became apparent, much to Van de Griff's disappointment, that the informant had been stood up. Realizing that he had uncovered a much larger case than that of a missing person,
See what I mean? They're just right on the cusp of it all the time,
Right.
but they can just never seem to figure it out.
Always so close, yet so far away.
But I do specifically remember reading about this guy, and he felt bad because he realized later that he could have stopped all this
Yep.
had he basically become the monster himself. And he didn't. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that nobody should blame him for it. Like nobody thinks in the moment, but I gotta kill this guy.
Right. He's going to do bad things. Like, how do you know? You don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he kind of got the clue at that time that yeah, he was doing some bad things.
I don't know.
I see another documentary off here to the side that I'd love to watch on here, but I don't, I don't want
I
to
see it.
I don't want to go too much into true crime because it doesn't seem to be what everybody else is, into as much.
I mean, let us know.
Yeah, let us know because
This is our jam right here.
well, we don't want to just do this. Like we want to
No.
mix it up, but we'd like to do. I want to do true crime stuff too because it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're always just right there, man. They're always just right there. They just can't seem to go all the way with it.
Yep.
Van de Griff notified the Indianapolis Police Department. While the police had earlier sent the informant and his incredulous story packing, Virgil took him and his informant to the one person in the department whom he believed would see the value in the tale. She was the no-nonsense detective Mary Wilson, who, Vandegrift knew, was already working on a number of other missing person cases. He found her a ready ear. Mary Wilson, dark-haired, pretty, and in her mid-40s, had steadfastly worked her way up through the ranks of the Indianapolis Police Department, from beat cop to detective. She had served in the Sex Crimes Division, where she quickly learned the pathology of sexual criminals and the aberrations connected with their acts. By the time she transferred to missing persons, she realized that people aren't always as they seem on the surface. Mary liked almost everything about missing person cases. The sense of closure that came with finding people, talking to family members and friends, retracing someone's steps, following every lead to its logical end, like unraveling all the threads in a piece of cloth. It was the purest kind of police work there was, as far as she was concerned. In fact, she had been the principal investigator in the Jeff Jones disappearance, the case that Vandegrift had read about in the Indiana Word, and whose details matched so closely with those of the missing person reports for Roger Goodlett and Alan Broussard. Mary, as it turned out, was investigating disappearances of
What
other
does it get
Indianapolis
Broussard
men
right, but
too,
it keeps
those
messing
of
up
20-year-old
all my
Richard
stuff?
Hamilton,
I don't know.
21-year-old Johnny Bayer, 28-year-old Alan Livingstone, and others dating back to the early 90s, all homosexuals. Mary recognized the
All right,
informant
take it
as
easy,
perhaps
easy
the
there, AI
long-lost
voice.
connection that might help tie these many disappearances into one nutshell. He had actually survived a night with a possible killer and was willing to talk about
Yeah, it
his
looks like Corey
experience
Feldman.
in all its
It
sordid and
does.
mind-bending details. Repeating his story to Mary, he then accompanied her on the prowl through the northern suburbs to find the scene of his nightmare. Pulling into one gateway after another, none of the private manors struck a familiar chord. And in the meantime, Mary designated plainclothesmen to field the gay bars in town, the 501 Club, the Varsity, and our place, where they talked to the bar owners and their frequenters for information that might identify the elusive kidnapper and throttler. "Get me this guy's license plate number," she told the informant, "and we'll take it from there." Mary wasn't sure the informant could come up with the number, but he and his friends had a better shot at it than she did. They were in the bars, and there was a
Then
chance that
figuring out
Brian might
that there's
show up
probably a
again there.
serial killer.
Yep.
The informant still continued to drop in at Vandegrift's office to speak randomly to Connie Pierce, with whom he felt a bond. Open-minded and sympathetic, Connie also matched her boss's perception of crime fighting in that all pursuits are fair game. While Vandegrift utilized all the high-technology components of law enforcement, Connie knew that he wasn't beyond using such means as hypnosis, for instance, to help solve some 300 crimes. It was Connie's idea to call a friend of hers, a psychic named Wanda, who lived in
Right.
Ohio. She related the facts derived from the tape recordings that Vandegrift had made of the informant's interviews in hopes that Wanda might shed some light on the whereabouts of the house with the mannequins. While she couldn't pinpoint a location,
So weird.
Wanda's words made Connie shudder.
One
"I see
night,
a man
while you're sleeping, I'm going to collect a bunch of mannequins, and I'm going to set them up around our room, but only on your side of the bed while they all stare down at you, and then I'm going to wake you up
Absolutely not.
and be like, it's time. My friends are here.
Mm,
We want to talk to you about something."
tied to a bed, handcuffed, spread-eagled. I see pictures being taken while he's being strangled. The tongue is swollen, quite long coming out of his mouth. And the eyes, oh, that's a hell house. Tell him never to go there again." Impressed with the woman's dramatic warning, Vandegrift continued to check on the house's identity through more routine means. Vandegrift dispatched one of his investigators, Bill Hillsley, who had been a state trooper for many
Damn, man.
years and knew the highways and byways of the
Nah,
Indianapolis
he's
area,
not that
to
mean.
search the county suburbs. His quest brought him to a property sign at
I'd
the
love to
end of a
go
long
here.
driveway in
Mhm.
Westfield marked Fox Hollow Farms. He was aware of the informant's
And
statement
by the
about
way, it is not Fox Hollow Farms because there is a Fox Hollow Farms. It's Fox Hollow Farm. And there is a difference because when you Google it, something different comes up for each of them.
Right.
And it really messed me up back when I did this episode because I was like, this doesn't look right. And it wasn't. But I just want to throw that out
Two
there.
totally different
Yeah,
things.
if you ever look this up, Fox Hollow Farm and Fox Hollow Farms are two different places.
seeing a sign outside Brian's house that read Farm something and thought he would investigate. The estate Hillsley came upon greatly resembled the informant's description, large, run down, and morbid. Nobody seemed to be home, So he
Seems like a
parked his
pretty weak
Isuzu and
description.
peered through several windows, hoping to catch sight of an indoor pool or to smell the sharp odor of chlorine. Knowing that he was stretching the legalities of his job, he didn't tarry, but felt sure that this might be the place that the informant had visited. It belonged, he found out, to a family named Baumeister. Vandegrift ordered aerial shots made of the property. When he showed the photos to the informant, however, the latter digested them a moment before replying, "No, I don't think so. The driveway is too short from what I remember it to be." Herb Baumeister continued to live his facade. His marriage to Julie continued its on-the-surface normalcy, and their two Save-A-Lot stores continued to occupy much of their daylight time.
Some dungeon entrances in Top Heroes are super
We ate
sneaky.
her Baumeister
At
food.
Sentry Tower, most players just grab the chest and
The cracks that had been invisible to others up until the mid-1990s were now beginning to manifest. The strains of a sexless, loveless marriage were appearing in the mannerisms and on the
Poor lady.
expressions of especially Julie. People at home and in the neighborhood were talking. Professionally, their business began suffering. By the end of 1994, the Save-A-Lots had taken a plunge. Shoppers declined. Bills soared. Julie, tired of the bickering and financial dilemmas, and of a fairy tale life that never quite matched Cinderella, threatened divorce. As another new year opened, however, she did not act. Instead, she sat by and watched her business decline, her marriage sour, and her husband grow stranger. At the workplace,
Couldn't
Herb's
imagine him getting any
ever-darkening moods
stranger.
were venting on his employees. He demanded grueling work and unfair attention from them, acting as if he were some kind of king who deserved the peons' praise. He fired those who wouldn't comply with unjust treatment, yet his own workaday behavior was a farce. He would, say his employees, disappear for hours, then return reeking of alcohol and barking orders through whiskeyed breath. The once tidy stores had become, under the lack of Baumeister attention, sloven. Everything was so
Sloven?
dirty, remembers one of
The hell
Herb's
does that
clerks.
mean?
Everywhere you looked, there were mountains of garbage bags.
I can honestly say that's the
It
first
was
time
like
I've ever
working
heard
in a
that word.
garbage heap. Almost a year had passed since Virgil Vandegrift and Mary Wilson had begun their search for a man named Brian Smart. His real identity and his house of mannequins remained a mystery. Whatever leads we could have taken went nowhere, Vandegrift states. Personally, I didn't feel there was a whole lot of cooperation between the city police and the Hamilton County officials, whose attitude I sensed was one of, "These folks here are rich and therefore above suspicion." But in truth, there weren't many hard leads, so we couldn't push too far. Hamilton was Indiana's fastest growing, wealthiest county. Its median family income of $87,168
I've
was
only
more
been
than
to
twice
Illinois
that of the
once, or
rest of the
Indiana.
state.
Indiana. Did
The
we go
average
through
home
Indiana?
went for
I flew over it.
$106,500, just a swift 25-minute highway
Seemed like a
commute
very
north of
boring place.
Indianapolis. It was dotted with picture-perfect older communities,
All I saw were
postcards of
windmills
suburban
and
middle
farms.
America. The hard lead that Vandegrift and Wilson wanted did finally leap forward. Assuming the situation had cooled enough for his reappearance on the gay scene, Herb Baumeister decided to stop in at the Varsity Lounge on the evening of August 29, 1995. Present at the bar was the informant who, having given up hope of ever seeing Brian Smart again, refrained from jumping out of his shoes with excitement. He chatted with Baumeister nonchalantly and then, at evening's end, managed to record the license plate number on the pickup truck which Baumeister drove away. The next morning, hearing what the informant had accomplished, Mary Wilson cheered. Plate number 75237A belonged not to anyone named Brian Smart, but to a Herb H. Baumeister of Westfield, Indiana. He lived in an
Interesting.
estate
Yeah, I
called
remember
Fox
this.
Hollow Farms with a wife and children. The manor house, Mary learned, boasted a swimming pool in the basement. Now the police were closing in.
Who the hell builds a swimming pool in the basement?
I don't know.
We're in a basement. Could you imagine having a swimming pool down here?
No.
It'd be so weird.
Be really weird.
Yeah.
Super weird.
I mean, I guess it'd be. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
indoor in a cold state, I get it, but like it's weird.
It's just a strange area.
It is. It is.
And Herb began to unravel. Mary and her boss, Lieutenant Thomas Green, approached Baumeister at his Washington Street store on November 1st after
Meister.
first surveying his actions for a term. Without pretense, Mary told him straight out why they were there. They were investigating the disappearance of several young men in the Indianapolis
Could you
community.
imagine being in a marriage where you've done it 6 times in 24 years and the cops are coming here and they're telling you all this stuff? It would have to make sense, though, right? You'd have to be like,
It kind of clicks some things together, I
all
think.
right, I guess I could see him at the gay bar.
Yeah, because she they don't have a sexual marriage. He's been pulling away, and she's, like they said, have been watching him get weirder.
Ah, God, I wish I could talk to her and be like, "What do you mean by weirder? Like,
Yeah,
what was he
right.
doing? Was he
And
like,
how did it differ from before?
yeah? I mean, was he like buying beef and choking it, whipping the turkeys?
That's that's really weird.
Is he beating his meat?
that he was a suspect and they wanted to search his home. With the snub of a suffering saint, he refused, telling them that further communication must be channeled through his lawyer. In the car afterward, Green told Mary that he thought her was not only nervous beyond belief, but one of the weirdest guys I've ever seen.
Mm,
Not to be outdone by Herb's refusal, Mary attempted to outangle him. She approached Julie Baumeister,
See if he's
who,
still
as
alive.
co-owner of Fox Hollow, could legally authorize a ground search of the connubial property. The detective found Julie just as stubborn as Herb had been, however. Evidently, Herb had told Julie that he was being falsely accused of theft, and if approached, do not, under any circumstances, allow the police to conduct a search. But
yeah.
when Mary confided in the wife, explaining the real reason for their quest, Julie looked at Mary as if she'd just dropped a nuclear bomb in her lap.
Go
When
ahead.
she recovered enough to
Mhm.
speak again, she informed Mary that they could not search her home. She was polite, but still stunned, almost beyond words. Mary
This
gave
has to be
Julie
a
her
lot
card
for her to
and
take in.
urged her to
Yeah.
call her if she changed her mind. Julie's refusal, the law knew, did not indicate her guilt. It was typical of the reaction of a wife who denies she has wedded someone with such a dark side.
Mm.
As
Hmm.
things soured more and
But
more
she
at the
has to
Baumeister
know. She has to know deep down that,
Something is off. Something is
I mean,
wrong.
obviously,
Something.
she definitely knows something's off, but like, she has to know that there has to be some truth in what they're saying because
Yeah.
she herself admits, like, he's just getting weirder and weirder, and like he's doing all these things and like drinking at work, and the house is a mess, the job is a mess. So like, she has to know
Absolutely.
something.
Something is not right. And
Where's that?
then they're
Where's that
coming
women's
to you.
intuition?
And then they're coming to you with these very specific accusations.
Yeah,
How can you not be like, yeah, absolutely. Go search. Like what? There's missing people. There
I
like
think it's a level of shock.
I
Could you?
agree, but like
Because even though she knew he was weird and something was wrong, she's still living in this fantasy perfect world for almost 30 years. And then they're coming to her being like, "Hey, your husband's choking out other men while he's having sex with them in the basement."
and then they never come home.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't make it. Well, that's why I said choking out. But so I mean, deep down, I'm sure her brain is like, "Yeah, he's definitely doing this."
Right. Right.
But I feel like the shock of it's like, "No, no, no, we're normal."
Mm-mm.
Far from it, Miss Baumeister. I'm sorry, and I hope
So sorry,
if
Julie.
you're still around, I hope you're doing well. You
Absolutely.
deserve it.
Residents, obviously brought on by the tensions Herb was feeling by the police inquiries. Julie even phoned Mary Wilson one morning to blame her for causing her domestic life to worsen. The
Oh.
police are not coming to my house, she screamed, tearing through things, upsetting my children, all on the word of a psycho with whom my husband has never even heard of. Vandegrift,
Well,
as a private detective, denounces the waiting game played by the county police at this point. Mary Wilson, who wanted a search warrant, was unable to get one issued because Hamilton County was outside of her jurisdiction.
Mm.
Hamilton County, in the meantime, would not cooperate. Why? Who knows? Whether it was their
well,
timidity to
competitive
confront an
departments.
otherwise law
Happens.
abiding citizen until they had conclusive proof, or whether they really didn't believe Baumeister was guilty, I don't know. But it might have saved a lot of trouble with the 6-month wait it eventually took for Julie to finally open her backyard for inspection.
It's
Six
honestly as simple
months.
as because the one police department didn't want to help the other one so that they got credit for it. They were going to wait so that they could get credit for it.
Yeah.
The way departments and police departments work back then are very sketchy.
And it's the battling of the jurisdictions
Well,
and
because
it's
no,
wild.
everybody
Nobody.
was worried about who was going to get credit.
Yep.
And it sucks because a lot of things went unsolved, for a long period of time that could have been solved much quicker if these departments would have worked together.
Yeah. Or less lives would have been
Yeah.
lost if they would have taken care of it
A
sooner.
lot of this stuff happens today still. Like the
Absolutely.
police departments are like they go at each other and it's like,
Hmm.
dude, just solve the crime.
Yeah.
Nobody cares who gets credit for it.
Work together. I
You
don't know.
know, we know all about Jeffrey Dahmer. Who solved the case? That's my point.
It
Mm.
wasn't until June of 1996, 6 months, as Vandegrift states, that Julie came to her senses. Over that time, her husband had become a paranoid wreck. When the Children's Bureau decided to cancel its contract with the 2 failing Save-A-Lot stores in May, he seemed to go off the deep end. Home life for the woman was now intolerable. Both she and Herb had initiated separate divorce proceedings, and her mind continued, through it all, to replay the doubts about Herb's sanity that Mary had force-fed into her consciousness. Suddenly, she realized that she felt no loyalty to the thing that had been her husband. On June
A
23rd,
thing.
she called her lawyer, Bill Wendling, and told him to get in touch with Mary Wilson. Herb was currently out of town with his son Eric, visiting his mother at Lake Wawasee, and she wanted to take this opportunity to tell Mary about the bones she had found in her backyard. The following day, after Julie's lawyer notified her, Mary Wilson drove anxiously to Fox Hollow Farms. Accompanying her were 2 very skeptical Hamilton County officials, Captain Tom Anderson of the County Sheriff's
Hey, the
Office
devil's in the
and a
details, man.
detective, Jeff Markham.
It
In
is.
truth, Anderson was sure that the human remains Wilson hoped to find would turn out to be animal bones.
The luck is on today,
But do they?
baby!
But are they?
He
That's
was
the
not too
question.
That's another
shy.
thing I'm saying, right? Like, she's found bones before.
Right.
So
Like,
I
and her
mean,
son found them and came to her and was like, hey. And
yeah.
then all of a sudden he's like making up this random
But
excuse.
people back then were so worried about their image to like other people in the area about how like your family fell apart because it's
Yeah.
not what people wanted. They wanted to be a good family and
Picture
a
perfect.
loving family. And then you didn't want to be like the divorce lady with 3 or 4 kids and
Yeah.
your old man's a sexual sadist. And so people were really willing to like push off their feelings just to look better. It's just
So
a
wild.
it's just a more local level of the shit that happens today online.
Yeah.
Even to
This is
Mary's
true.
face, to directly appraise the woman's suspicions as bullshit. Julie Baumeister, with
Well
attorney
said, AI.
Wendling at her side, met the law enforcement people at her front door that afternoon and led them through the house to the wooded backyard. There, she pointed to the spot where, 2 years earlier, her son Eric had found a skeleton. The reason she had not notified the authorities until now, she claimed, was because she had believed Herb's story about the bones being no more than a dissecting skeleton. His recent erratic actions, however, filled her with new doubts. The yard, at first glance, looked normal, but as the men began to kick through the low grass and patches of dirt just beyond the back patio, they encountered a bone about a foot long, charred from having been burned. They weren't sure if it was human. Then, as their eyes focused on the area immediately around them, it quickly became apparent that those many pebbles and rocks strewn across the flat cover were not pebbles and rocks, but fragments of bone. Lawyer Bill Wendling, watching the police scoop up one chipped and broken bone after another, now looked down at his own feet. Like evidence that followed the old adage, so obvious it's unclear, he realized in a chill that he too was standing on what resembled bone chips, here where the Baumeister kids played their innocent child games.
Oh
At
my
one
God.
point, he leaned over to pick up what were obviously human teeth. Pieces of bone lay everywhere. Still, the county people on site were unconvinced that what they were gathering and taking photographs of were human. On this point, they drastically contended with Mary Wilson. Unlike her law enforcement counterparts from Hamilton County, Mary had heard the fear in the informant's voice. She'd seen firsthand how nervous Herb had been and how he had done everything in his power to keep her off his land, including lying to Julie about their investigation. Now she knew why. She delivered the bags of evidence to forensic anthropologist Stephen Narwaki at the University of Indiana for an examination. His answer was fast coming. They're human,
Control yourself.
they're recent, and they've been burned. The next day, the police returned to the scene of what looked like one of the worst crimes Indiana ever encountered. It began to appear now that Herb Baumeister's homemade graveyard might contain the remains of those many young homosexuals who, over several
just
years,
any young man
had
would've-
vanished from the
would've been
streets of
fine.
Indianapolis. This time, other officials joined the original search party to conduct a thorough dig of the premises. Among the group was a prosecuting attorney named Sonia Learcamp and a half score of detectives. Now Rocky came too with 2 assistants, Matt Williamson and Christopher Schmidt, to perform a scientific exhumation of what was obviously a secreted cemetery. The anthropological team began the hunt by placing small orange flags in the ground wherever a bone fragment appeared. In only a half hour, they dropped nearly 100 such markers.
Oh my God.
Summing it up, Narwaki exclaimed, "It looks like a mass disaster scene." While
Yep.
the dig continued into the late hours, Other policemen checked out the interior of the Baumeister home. They found the mannequins, the wet bar, the pool, just as the informant had described them. However, they uncovered something that he had not seen the evening of his encounter with Baumeister, a semi-hidden video camera that, the
Oh,
police immediately suspected, had been
nice.
used to tape the strangulations. The
Mm-mm.
case was turning more bizarre hourly. Julie grew anxious about the
I don't know if
safety
I'd
of her
say it's
son Eric,
bizarre.
who was with
Say
Herb
it's
at Lake Wawasee. Reality
sadistic.
seeping in, she feared the limits to which
Very.
Herb might go if he found out what was happening at home. Prosecutor Learcamp and a county judge drew up custody papers to remove the boy from his father's presence.
Mm.
Efforts were made by Baumeister to hold on to his son, but came to no avail. He had no reason to suspect that his secret had been literally uncovered back at Fox Hollow, and he figured this custody action was just a ploy by Julie to counteract his latest divorce movements. When the police showed up with the proper papers to escort the child home, Herb released him calmly and without menace. Back at the estate, plenty was happening. County interrogators, led by Sheriff's Detective Kenneth Wisman, were beginning to put the pieces of the Baumeister puzzle together. Compost piles yielded heavy degrees of bones where, it appeared, the killer had burned his corpses under piles of leaves and garbage. They interviewed the informant, who told them of Herb's obsession with strangulation and sexual asphyxiation. A big
Mm.
question they had had, how could Herb have strangled and burned and buried these men without his family's knowledge,
Yeah.
was answered in an interview with Julie
Because
herself.
he did it when they were
She
gone.
explained that sometimes, for several months at a time, especially summers, she and the children visited Widow Baumeister, leaving Herb alone at home, balancing the times of the victims' disappearances
Yeah, and he
with the
was really good about like not doing stuff when everybody was home. Like he had for a serial killer, like he had really good self-control.
It's scary.
Like
No, that's, I think, I don't know if that's scarier.
it is scarier because most serial killers get caught because they go on a killing spree.
And they're just like wild and
Yeah,
out
but
there.
Herb
And
never did that. Herb could, do a couple while the family was gone, and then they'd come back and he'd go back to just being the way he was before. Like it was no problem for him. But
it's
I
wild.
think it started to get the better of him at the end.
Hmm.
Uh like when they were talking about he was drinking a lot and stuff, and I think he was probably besides the fact that he was a serial killer, I think he was struggling with his self-identity,
Mm.
his sexuality and all that, and I think it was starting to get the better of him, and he started making mistakes.
I would love to say that it was because he started feeling guilty for the
No, he
things that
didn't
he
feel
did,
guilty. He didn't feel guilty.
but I would think it would be more like he wished he could do it more often than he was allowed to. You know what I
I'd
mean?
say that for any serial killer.
Yeah.
Any serial killer. Like that's that's the life they want to live. So, I mean, yeah, they'd all wish they could do it more. But Herb did have a really good um self-control when it came to the stuff for years and
To
years.
just be able to do it on a
Yeah,
specific
he could just
schedule,
turn
and
it off and turn it on.
that's so crazy.
It's really creepy.
the
Yeah.
periods that she and her brood were away, the incidences matched. Meanwhile, the excavations in the backyard went on without pause. The number of diggers had swelled to about 60 volunteers,
Mm.
mostly off-duty policemen and firemen. The first couple days' search had produced an amazing 5,500 bones, teeth, and bone
Oh
fragments,
my God.
which, according to Narwaki, made up about 4 bodies. After they had combed the entire 18 acres of the Baumeister property, members of the team were soon to learn that their search was far from over. Neighbors from an adjacent farm crossed into the police cordon to inform them that they had found evidence of yet more bones next door. They led investigators to an area cut through with a drainage ditch that separated the two properties. Here in this ditch were so many human ribs, vertebrae, and spines that one of the officials murmured, "Jesus Christ, they're everywhere."
Peacock is the streaming home of
Yep.
Dogman.
This just in.
Cinematic gold.
The
No.
bones were so numerous and more intact than those on the Baumeister land that they actually stuck up visibly from the mud. Shovels drew up not only more bones, but with them cans of Miller Genuine Draft Beer, Herb's favorite drink, and handcuffs that had probably bound the
MGD.
victims in death. By the time exhumation of this area ended, and by the time that the 140 bones were estimated as those belonging to another 7 men, the mortal count had risen to about 11 men killed. It would be September before the
I don't, I think I remember from our episode, but this clip
It's
is
from
from
a
a
news
news clip.
interview, yeah. That
And
has nothing to do with murder.
right. but, like, they were in his neighborhood, and he just stopped and, like, decided to do this news interview.
No, I'm gonna tell you because I remember exactly what it
Okay,
is.
I don't, but I do remember it
They
was a
were
news clip.
working on the road out in
Mhm.
front of his house, and they were asking him about how he felt about them putting in this road. And he was upset because there was a dead raccoon in the road, and he goes on and on about how the road crew didn't pick it up and they painted a line right over it. And he's talking about how like evil and debaucherous that is. I remember this because I've seen this
I
clip
remember it was
so
something
many
super
times.
weird, but
Yep,
oh my
that's what
god.
that's from. I really hope they play it.
Yeah.
I've
I
been
didn't know if
waiting.
they were going to, but that's why I wanted to bring it
Yeah,
up.
I know they.
Anthropologists
I
were
hope
able
they
to
play it.
identify some of the bodies. Disappointingly, only 4, and each of these gathered from dental records. The 4 positively identified victims named were Roger Allen Goodlett, 34, Stephen Hale, 26, Richard Hamilton, 20, and Manuel Resendez, 31. To this day, the remains of others found at Fox Hollow Farms wait to be identified. But where was Herb Baumeister? He'd absconded from Lake Wawasee and, like his victims, faded into the mist. The only clue the police had came from Brad Baumeister, Herb's brother, who called Detective Wisman on June 29th, 5 days after the police found the graveyard behind the house.
Detective Wisman.
Brad told the
Oh.
policeman that his older brother had phoned him from the little Michigan town of Fenville, saying he was on a business trip and needed money quickly. After Brad sent the cash, he became aware of the goings-on at Fox Hollow and notified the authorities immediately. As best can be determined, Herb, in his 1989 gray Buick, left Wawasee and headed north, arriving at Fenville around the 28th of
I don't think they're
June.
going to show the
The next
news
day, he
thing.
reached
I don't
Port
either.
Huron, where he again phoned Brad, asking for more money. By this time, Brad had spoken to Wisman, who asked Brad to tell his
Maybe at the
brother,
end I'll find it
should he
real
ring
quick and play it
again,
because I think it's
to have
funny.
him call the police who wanted to talk to him. It was a futile request, he figured, but worth trying. At this point, the fugitive entered Canada. Ontario Provincial Police told the Indianapolis Star they believed Herb arrived in Sarnia on June 30th, spending several days there before driving east along the Lake Huron shoreline to Grand Bend, Ontario. There, at Pinery Park, on the evening of July 3rd, Herb would take his last life, his own. He put a .357 Magnum revolver barrel to his forehead and pulled the trigger. The
That's
note
right.
he
He
left
killed
behind
himself.
attributed his decision to a failing business and an irreparable marriage. There was no mention of the
Okay.
skeletons left behind him in Westfield. Instead, his final words on the 3-page suicide document explained that he would now eat a peanut butter sandwich, his favorite snack, and then go to sleep. The evening before he died, a Canadian trooper had stopped him to ask him why he was sleeping in his car under a nearby bridge. He told her that he was merely a tourist passing through and was grabbing a moment's rest. At the time, she noted some luggage and what looked like a pile of videotapes in his back seat. Were
Hmm.
these videotapes of the murders he committed in the pool
Mhm.
at Fox Hollow Farms? We will never know because after he died, there were no signs of the tapes on him nor in
Mm.
his car. He must have tossed them in a lake before he shot himself.
Somebody's going to find him
Maybe
one day.
it's for the
Mhm.
best.
Okay, so that's Herb Baumeister. I want to see if I can.
News clip.
Uh,
There it is.
sorry, let me make
So
sure.
this was obviously before the police like came to his house and found all these crude things.
Yeah.
But like we were researching it and it was really weird because Stephen came across this news clip and it it was just so strange. It was like, what is happening right
Well, I mean, I'd love to get credit, but like, I didn't really come across it. It's just out there.
now? Hmm.
It's been out there, but yeah, this is because we didn't get to hear how he sounds or anything,
Right.
and this is like right before he was caught,
So
sort
weird.
of.
The Indiana Department of Transportation maintains over 11,000 miles of roadway, and we paint those miles of roadway each year, and this is just an isolated incident that happened.
The drive-by striping, whatever.
Herb Baumeister Baumeister of Carmel saw it all.
I said to my son, they're going to hit that raccoon with the spray gun, and sure enough, they just striped right over its face and neck. Didn't even move it, no effort to, get it out of the way. So I happened to have a Polaroid with me, so I took a shot at the thing.
A raccoon, which met its demise on the yellow line, became one with the paint. The raccoon has since been removed. This is all that's left.
This was just, the painter should have had a chalk line drawn around his career by state officials. There was no excuse for that. The poor thing deserved a better fate than that.
So just what is the explanation?
It already met its fate.
For that, we went to the State Highway Department itself.
The Indiana Department of Transportation feels like this is a
I ordered 200 ham.
Okay.
So, anyways, that's that's the Herb Baumeister.
That was the clip. Yeah.
Very interesting. He's a kind of an interesting guy, I guess. I don't know. What are you gonna call it? Hey, you can see the top of the computer right there. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I know. I see that now.
But anyways, that is now we all know more about Herb Baumeister.
Mm-hmm.
And
freaking weirdo.
Yeah, and I mean,
So weird.
so sad that all those people had to die. And and oh, that's right. I think it was like 36 people he's believed to have killed or something like that. Hold on, I want to look that up. So I want to get that right before we go because
That's a lot.
I
But
want to
this
make
is
sure.
this is the episode that we did that ties in with paranormal. It is said that the house on the farm, the Fox Hollow Farm, not plural, is said to be haunted.
It is, supposedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
All right, so it says he definitely killed at least 12.
Wow.
But it's suspected that it's estimated he killed between 11 and 25 people. And I believe the number's gone up recently. And he's believed to be the I-70 strangler. But nobody really knows. Nobody really knows.
Mm.
That's off of Interstate 70. But I don't know. But if you guys enjoy this content, let us know.
Please.
Because there's other stuff revolving around this that I'd like to talk about.
Absolutely.
But if nobody else wants to hear it, then we won't do it. And we'll just watch it in our free time like we do now.
We enjoy it. We like it.
Megan wants to do it pretty bad, so
I do.
make her fun bun little day.
My hair's not canceled.
Words are hard. How are you going to be on YouTube repping another YouTube channel?
I am. I totally am.
Oh my gosh.
Shout out Evan and Caitlin.
Yeah, they don't know us. They probably never,
wish they
They
did.
never will. We don't live that far from them.
Love their channel.
But anyways, guys, we appreciate you coming and hanging out and spending time with us.
Yeah, thank you, Terry.
Good. Terry likes it.
We enjoyed it too.
Terry likes it. We're going to do it again.
As long as Terry likes it.
Hell yeah, man. Terry's
That's right.
good people.
I know.
So yeah, we probably will do more because there are much worse people than Herb Baumeister, unfortunately. I have one in mind. And it's bad. It's real bad. But
there's so many that we could do. So many.
We will be live tomorrow. It'll be more in the evening because that's when Megan will be home. But we should also be recording an episode tomorrow.
Yay.
So first episode back. So you'll probably get maybe a little bit of a shorter live. Maybe we'll just watch, like a nuke video.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe we'll just be on the same live and then we'll just go into recording the episode. I don't know how we're going to do it yet. I haven't figured it out. But
yeah, Terry, we're always watching this. Steven's not worried that I love it so much because he does too.
Yeah, I like it too.
I don't know what it is, man. It's just very
I watch as much, if not more, true crime than she does.
Agreed.
I consume true crime I'm pretty much 7 days a week.
We both listen to true crime podcasts. Yeah. That's pretty much all I listen to. Excuse me.
You all right there?
Yeah. It's pretty much all I listen to.
That's all I listen to.
So, I don't know.
Different forms of it.
I love it.
We watch nothing but true crime content, like on YouTube and stuff.
We tend to watch a lot of interviews, like
crime scene interviews, investigation room interviews. It's all still true crime.
God, what am I trying to say?
Police interview like stuff
in their interview rooms, like the footage from it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We really enjoy it.
Yeah, we like to see. It makes us feel better. I will say, we have been consuming a little bit of true crime parallel, maybe true crime adjacent, because we've been watching Love After Lockup. Dude, listen, I don't care who knows. It's so fun because it will make you feel better about yourself.
It is terrible trash TV, but it is
Hey man,
hilarious. It
I
is
don't care
so
who knows.
funny.
It is good stuff.
The stuff that these people do in their daily lives
We
and
just
like
watched two people have sex on the side of the road.
it's wild, dude.
Like they couldn't even make it home.
Like what is happening?
But
I don't
anyways,
know.
yeah, everything we watch revolves around some sort of true crime or paranormal or something.
Hmm.
But all right, we got to get out of here. We got to make it to the top of the mountain and back in time for pizza.
That's right.
All right, so we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for showing up and
Thank you.